It was supposed to be the night Masyn Winn announced himself to baseball, and just hours later, it turned into something nobody in St. Louis saw coming. One moment, he's delivering the biggest hit of his young career. The next, he's on the side of Interstate 64 after a crash that could have changed everything. And when you really step back and look at this entire sequence, it's not just a wild coincidence. It's a reminder of how fast everything can flip in professional sports. Let me take you through exactly how this all went down. Earlier that day, the Cardinals are locked in a tight battle with the Mets. Low scoring, tense. The kind of game where one swing, one mistake, one moment decides everything. We go all the way to the 11th inning. 2 outs, pressure at its absolute peak. And this is where Masyn Winn steps in. Now remember, this is still a young player, only 24 years old, still building his identity in the league, still proving he belongs in these big moments. And what does he do? He delivers. A bloop single into short right field, not a towering home run, not a flashy highlight reel blast, but the kind of hit that wins games, the kind of hit that defines players who understand situational baseball. That ball drops, the run scores, Cardinals win 2-1. Game over, series clinched. And just like that, Winn has his first career game-winning hit. That matters because for a young player, those moments aren't just stats, they're psychological breakthroughs. They tell the clubhouse, the coaching staff, and even the player himself, I can do this when it matters most. After the game, the energy is high, teammates celebrating, fans buzzing, media starting to take notice. This should have been the beginning of a feel-good storyline. Instead, just hours later, everything shifts. According to reports, Winn is driving along Interstate 64 near St. Louis, alone. Just another night after a game. Then suddenly, a single-car crash. Wet pavement is blamed. No reckless driving narrative. No off-field controversy. Just one of those unpredictable, uncontrollable moments. But here's the thing about incidents like this. In sports, they always hit harder than they should. Because fans don't just see a player in a car. They see a future. They see a season. They see a team's trajectory hanging in the balance. The Cardinals release a statement quickly. We are grateful that he is okay and thank the first responders in our community who helped Masyn tonight. Simple, controlled, but you can read between the lines. That's relief. That's an organization realizing how close they may have come to a completely different headline. Winn is transported to a hospital, evaluated. And here's the key detail. No serious injuries. Let that sink in. Because in situations like this, that outcome is never guaranteed. He's later released, safe. But now the questions start. Will he play the next day in Detroit? Is he shaken up? How does something like this impact a young player mentally, especially after such a career-defining moment just hours earlier? And this is where the story goes deeper than just a timeline. Because psychologically, this kind of swing from extreme high to sudden danger can hit differently. Think about it. You're on top of the world. You just delivered a game-winning hit. Adrenaline still running through your body, confidence peaking, and then reality hits. Literally, moments like that force players to pause, to reflect, to feel something bigger than the game. And sometimes that can go one of two ways. Either it rattles you or it sharpens you. Now let's zoom out for a second, because this isn't the first time baseball has seen something like this. Sports history is filled with moments where off-field incidents collide with on-field breakthroughs. Think about players who would break out performances only to face sudden adversity immediately after, injuries, accidents, personal situations, and what separates good players from great ones is how they respond to that shift. Because baseball is as mental as it gets. A swing can be affected by a thought. Timing can be thrown off by a distraction. Confidence can disappear overnight. So now the real question becomes, what does this mean for Masyn Winn moving forward? Because if you connect the dots, his story with the Mets already had a strange kind of symmetry. His first big league hit also against the Mets, an infield single back in August 2023. And that moment had its own layer of chaos. Pete Alonso, then with the Mets, accidentally throws the ball into the stands. What should have been a routine play turns into an unforgettable first hit moment. And what does Alonso do afterward? He sends Winn a bottle of 1942 tequila and a signed bat as a peace offering. I just wanted to send him something because I didn't want him to think about anything, Alonso said. That line right there, it tells you something about how players think. They understand moments stick. They understand how one weird play, one unexpected twist can stay in a player's head. And now fast forward, another milestone moment for Winn, another unexpected twist immediately after, different situation, much more serious implications. But the pattern is there. And for a young player, these kinds of emotional swings can either build resilience or create pressure. Now let's talk about the Cardinals. This isn't just about one player, this is a team trying to establish stability. Try to build consistency, and Winn is a key part of that. A dynamic shortstop, a developing offensive presence, someone they're counting on to grow into a cornerstone. So when something like this happens, even without injuries, it still impacts the team. Lineup decisions, travel adjustments, mental preparation, and more importantly, clubhouse energy. Because when a teammate goes through something like this, it resonates. It reminds everyone how fragile things can be, and in a long MLB season where routines are everything, even a small disruption can echo. Now here's where the bigger picture really comes into focus. Moments like this test more than just physical readiness, they test emotional maturity, they test focus, they test identity. Who is Masyn Winn when the adrenaline fades? Who is he when the spotlight shifts from performance to personal reality? Because great players don't just rise in big moments. They stabilize after chaos. They find consistency when everything around them feels unpredictable. And if you're the Cardinals, you're hoping this becomes a turning point, not a setback. You're hoping he comes back sharper, more focused, more aware, because sometimes close calls create clarity. They remind players what matters. They reset priorities, and ironically, they can elevate performance. But there's also another side to this: fatigue, disruption, lingering nerves. Even if he's physically fine, the mental toll of a crash isn't something you just shake off overnight. And that's why his availability for the next game becomes such a big talking point, not because of stats, but because of readiness. Is he locked in? Is he distracted? Is he still processing what just happened? And in a sport where milliseconds matter, those questions are everything. So now we're watching closely, not just for his next hit, but for his response. Because this story isn't over. In fact, it's just getting more interesting. You've got a young player coming off a career milestone, a sudden real-life scare, a team trying to find its rhythm, and a season that doesn't slow down for anyone. That's the reality of professional sports. There's no pause button, no time to fully process. You move forward or you get left behind. And that's why the next few games could quietly define more than people realize. Not in headlines, but in development. Because if Winn steps back onto that field and performs after everything that just happened, that tells you something. That tells you he's not just talented, he's built for this. But if there's hesitation, if there's inconsistency, that tells you something too. And that's what makes this story so compelling. It's not just about a crash. It's about what comes after. So here's the question that every Cardinals fan, and honestly every baseball fan, should be asking right now. Does this moment become the spark that elevates Masyn Winn to the next level, or is it the kind of off-field shock that quietly derails his momentum? Let me know what you think down in the comments, and make sure you subscribe to Sportswire USA so you don't miss any updates on this story.